In the incessant whirlwind of modern life, where time seems to be scarce and the pressure to produce results is constant, we often find ourselves chasing an illusory sense of control. We strive, we struggle, and frequently, we end up feeling exhausted, disconnected from ourselves and the world around us. But what if I told you there's a different way to live, an ancient wisdom that invites us to let go of the reins, to trust in the process, and to find profound peace in simplicity? This wisdom comes to us from the whispers of the past, from the enigmatic master, Lao Tzu, and his timeless work, the Tao Te Ching. Through its concise and profound verses, Lao Tzu unveils the secrets of the Tao, the fundamental way or flow that guides the universe, an invisible yet palpable principle that governs nature, existence, and ultimately our own lives. This audio is an invitation to an introspective journey. Together we'll explore concepts that, though written over 2,000 years ago, resonate with surprising relevance in our digital age. We'll learn to see strength in flexibility, wisdom in effortlessness, and richness in emptiness. This isn't a quick self-help manual, but a guide for reflection, a space for your mind to relax and your perceptions to open to a more harmonious way of inhabiting the world. Prepare to challenge your preconceived notions of power, success, and control. As you immerse yourself in the ideas of the Tao, you'll discover that true mastery lies not in dominating others, but in mastering yourself, in aligning with the inherent flow of life. I invite you to leave the hustle behind and allow these ancient teachings to guide you toward a more serene and balanced understanding of your own existence. Chapter 1: The Wisdom of Water and Flow. In this space of calm, I invite you to immerse your mind and spirit in one of the most profound and universally accessible metaphors bequeathed to us by the old master Lao Tzu, the wisdom of water. It is no coincidence that this fundamental element, so omnipresent in life, is the very essence of his teaching on the Tao, the immutable path that guides the universe and, by extension, our own existence. Water is not only vital for life, but its intrinsic nature embodies the highest principles of flow and harmony. Imagine, if you can, a great river. Visualize its humble birth in a mountain spring, a small stream winding through valleys and mountains, gaining strength and volume as it joins other tributaries. Observe how this river, with apparent effortlessness, finds its way through the most challenging landscapes. It confronts immense rocks, steep ravines, dense forests, and vast plains. Yet, the river, in its essence, never stops. Its purpose is to flow, and it does so with silent resolve and astonishing adaptability. The first thing we learn from water is its incredible adaptability. Unlike a rigid block of stone that resists any force, water yields. If a gigantic rock stands in its way, water doesn't try to knock it down with brutal, exhausting force. Instead, it gently flows around it, seeks the path of least resistance, glides over it if possible, filters underneath, or pushes through the tiniest cracks. Water has no ego. It doesn't cling to a predefined form or path. Its nature is to flow, and it always finds a way to move forward, perfectly adjusting to the circumstances it encounters. This malleability, this apparent softness, is actually its greatest strength. Now, let's contrast this with rigidity, a quality so valued in our society, but often detrimental to our well-being. Think of a dry tree branch. In the midst of a violent storm, this branch, in its inflexible determination to maintain its shape, resists every gust of wind. It clings tenaciously until the pressure becomes unbearable, and with a snap it breaks. On the other hand, if you observe a bamboo cane or a reed stalk, you'll see their dance with the wind. They bend gracefully, swaying gently and flexibly, and once the storm passes, they rise again, intact, because their ability to yield allowed them to survive. How many times in our own lives have we behaved like that rigid branch? We cling to a plan, an expectation, a preconceived idea with such vehemence that when reality presents an unexpected obstacle or a change of course, we become frustrated, stressed, anxious, or even experience a deep emotional break. We try to force events, push doors that are clearly closed, or desperately swim against tides that are, at that moment, too powerful for our individual strength. The Tao, through the lesson of water, whispers a liberating and fundamental truth to us. Resistance is the source of much of our suffering. When we stubbornly fight against what is, against the reality of the present moment, we create internal friction that exhausts us physically, mentally, and emotionally, distancing us from peace and effectiveness. The way of water, the way of the Tao, invites us to release that resistance. It is not an invitation to passive resignation or apathetic inaction. It is an invitation to cultivate a deep adaptive intelligence. It urges us to observe the situation with a clear mind, to understand its natural flow, to feel the direction of the current, and to adjust our response accordingly. It is to know, with an intuitive wisdom, when a direct action is useless and when the best action is to allow the situation to unfold a bit more, to wait for the opportune moment, or simply to adapt to the new direction. It is the art of dancing with life, of moving in sync with its rhythm instead of constantly fighting against its flow. Think of the experience of walking down a crowded street. If you try to go in a straight line and push your way through, you'll quickly get tired, bump into people, and become frustrated. But if you allow yourself to flow with the crowd, adjusting your pace, moving with the general rhythm, you'll find your way much more easily and with less friction. This is how flowing in life works. It's not about avoiding movement, but about synchronizing with the existing movement. Beyond its flexibility, water teaches us another profoundly powerful lesson: the strength of silent persistence. A single drop of water by itself seems insignificant, almost imperceptible. But drop by drop, water can fill an enormous lake. Drop by drop, it can erode the hardest stone, creating fascinating formations in caves or carving deep canyons over eons. Think again of the Grand Canyon, an imposing geological wonder sculpted not by a sudden explosive or violent force, but by the constant, patient, and seemingly gentle action of a river over millions of years. It is an accumulative force, relentless in its gentleness. This is a crucial and often forgotten lesson in our pursuit of goals and projects in modern society. We live in a culture that exalts immediate impact, quick results, instant success. We feel pressured to see linear and evident progress at every moment and tend to get frustrated easily if we don't, which leads us to abandon our efforts if the path seems long and arduous. The Tao, through the example of water, reminds us of the immense and underestimated power of gentle consistency. It is not momentary brute force, nor sporadic bursts of energy, but quiet persistence, patient dedication, and sustained continuous effort that generate the deepest, most significant and lasting changes in our lives and in the world around us. Do you have a dream? A long-term goal that seems overwhelming in its magnitude? Perhaps you want to learn a new, complex skill that requires years of practice, build a business from scratch in a competitive market, or nurture a relationship until it flourishes to its full potential. The path toward these aspirations can seem endless, full of obstacles and moments of discouragement. But if you adopt the mindset of water, if you commit to small, consistent, and continuous steps, with patient dedication and without the obsessive need to force immediate results, you will discover an inner strength that far surpasses any momentary burst of energy. Drop by drop, day by day, with fluidity and adaptability, you will shape your reality, just as the river shapes the Earth's landscape. Consider the process of seed germination. A tiny seed contains the potential for a gigantic tree. We don't achieve it by pulling on its leaves, but by providing a suitable environment: soil, water, light. Growth is internal, a patient process of expansion. Similarly, in our own personal and professional growth, we often become impatient. We want instant results from our investments of time and energy. But the Tao teaches us that true transformation, the sustainable and profound kind, is a gradual process. It requires faith that today's small effort, combined with tomorrow's and the day after, will create monumental change over time. Think also about how erosion transforms a mountain. It's not an event that happens in a single day or even a year, but the persistent action of falling rain, the ceaseless blowing wind, the ice expanding and contracting in cracks, and the small streams finding their way, all act continuously. Over time, that imposing and seemingly immutable mountain can become a gentle hill or a fertile valley. Transformation, the true transformation we seek in ourselves and in our environment, is often a slow, constant and, in its essence, silent process in its most powerful manifestation. It requires faith in the process and the ability to keep flowing, even when we don't see immediate results. This profound wisdom of water invites us to a radical and transformative introspection. Where in our lives are we trying to be unmoving rocks, resisting the natural flow of events with a rigidity that ultimately harms us more than it benefits? Where could we learn to be more like water, strategically yielding to find a smoother, more effective and harmonious path? Perhaps it manifests in an argument that leads nowhere, in a goal we are forcing too hard against the reality of the situation, or in a sudden change of plans that we resist accepting, clinging to the known out of fear of the uncertain. The Tao does not demand that we give up our desires or our actions. On the contrary, it asks us to align our actions with the very nature of reality, to act not from tension, forced control, or anxiety, but from deep understanding and inherent fluidity. By doing so, we release an immense amount of vital energy that was previously spent on resistance, on the constant friction of what should be versus what is now. This liberated energy can then be directed towards genuine creativity, toward authentic connection with others and with the world, and toward cultivating a profound sense of peace and serenity. It is a fundamental paradigm shift from struggle to flow. To be like water is ultimately an invitation to live with greater grace, with greater effectiveness, and with a renewed sense of purpose. It is to trust the mysterious and perfect process of life in the inherent order of the universe that reveals itself at every moment. It is to know that, just as the river inevitably finds its way to the vast ocean, we too will find our way if we learn to flow with the current, adapt to circumstances with wisdom, and persist with a gentle but unwavering determination. This deep understanding of natural flow fundamentally prepares us for the next key principle of the Tao, one that challenges us to reconsider how we interact with the world and how we can achieve even more by, paradoxically, doing less. Chapter 2. Wu Wei, the Art of Effortless Action. As the echo of water's wisdom resonates in our minds, we now delve into one of the deepest and often most misunderstood principles of the Tao, Wu Wei. If the fluidity of water teaches us to adapt, Wu Wei reveals how to act in perfect harmony with that adaptation, with an effectiveness that goes beyond brute force or excessive effort. The literal translation of Wu Wei is often non-action or not doing. For a culture like ours, obsessed with productivity, visible effort, and constant activity, this idea might sound like passivity, laziness, or even surrender to circumstances. However, nothing could be further from the truth. Wu Wei is not the absence of action, but action that arises from stillness, action that doesn't fight against the current but moves with it, leveraging its inherent momentum. It is maximum efficiency with minimum energy expenditure because the action is intrinsically aligned with the moment, the context, and the deep nature of things. Think of a skilled martial arts master. When facing an opponent, they don't always respond with brute force. Instead, they use the attacker's energy, redirecting it and leveraging it for their own benefit. Their movements are fluid, economical, efficient, almost seemingly effortless, because they are not imposing their will, but responding to the flow of the other's energy. Or imagine an experienced surfer. They don't fight the stormy waves. Instead, they become one with them. They wait for the precise moment, the right impulse of the perfect wave, and then glide over it, using its immense energy to propel themselves. If they tried to fight the unstoppable force of the ocean, they would be swept away and exhausted. The surfer, like the martial arts master, practices Wu Wei, an action that integrates with the natural flow, achieving extraordinary results with an apparent ease that amazes onlookers. Another everyday example is that of a good cook. They don't force ingredients to cook. They know the right heat, the precise time, the correct sequence. The food cooks without the cook fighting with it. Their art lies in preparing the conditions and trusting the process. The paradox of the wise gardener and the machine builder. To truly understand Wu Wei and its practical implications, we can contrast two fundamental approaches to interacting with the world, two mindsets that often clash in our modern lives and that determine our experience of effort and achievement, that of the wise gardener and that of the machine builder. The machine builder operates under the premise of absolute control and imposition. They see the world, whether projects, people, or situations, as a set of inert components that must be assembled, manipulated, and forced to produce a predetermined result with millimeter precision. Their approach is linear, rigid, and based on the constant application of their will over reality, believing that force is the only way to success. If a part doesn't fit immediately, they force it. If a process doesn't proceed as expected, their first reaction is to apply more pressure, more supervision, more exhaustive control. They firmly believe that success is achieved solely through constant and visible effort, meticulous planning down to the last detail, and the elimination of any deviation, however small, from the original plan. This mindset, while useful in very specific and limited contexts of engineering, assembly line production, or purely mechanical tasks, becomes deeply limiting, exhausting, and often counterproductive when applied to the complexity of human life, interpersonal relationships, creative processes, or even personal growth itself. Consider someone who tries to force a relationship to follow a pre-established script of happiness, who micromanages every task of their employees to the point of stifling them and undermining their initiative, or who tries to control every aspect of their children's lives, dictating their decisions and stifling their autonomy. The result is often increasing tension, passive or active resistance, mutual frustration, and, paradoxically, a real loss of control over what they most wish to influence. The machine builder may achieve short-term results, yes, but often at the cost of harmony, long-term sustainability, spontaneous creativity, and genuine joy. Their energy is quickly dissipated in the constant friction of resistance and struggle. On the other hand, the wise gardener embodies the spirit and practice of Wu Wei. They understand the intrinsic nature of what they cultivate, be it a plant, an idea, or a relationship. They know from experience and observation that they cannot pull on a plant's leaves to make it grow faster, nor force a flower to open before its natural time. Their power lies not in imposing their will, but in creating the right conditions for life to flourish on its own. From its own inherent wisdom, they carefully prepare the soil, ensuring nutrients and drainage. They provide the necessary water and light regularly. They protect plants from pests and weeds, and then, with patience and deep trust, they step back and let the inherent wisdom of nature do its work. The gardener doesn't force growth, they nurture it. The wise gardener is an attentive observer. If there's an unexpected drought, they water carefully. If there's too much rain, they ensure good drainage to prevent roots from rotting. They don't fight the weather or the seasons. Instead, they work with them, adapting and responding to what is. Their action is intentional, yes, but never forced. It's a perfect example of Wu Wei, an action that arises from a deep understanding of natural processes and an alignment with the inherent flow of life, allowing results to manifest organically, sustainably, and with a beauty and vitality that forced control could never replicate. Wu Wei in daily life, where non-action is the best action. How does this ancient and seemingly abstract principle translate into our busy and complex daily lives? Wu Wei manifests in various forms, often in moments when we least expect it or when we are most trying to force a situation. In work and leadership. A leader who practices Wu Wei is not a tyrant who dictates every move, but a facilitator, a catalyst. Instead of micromanaging every detail, imposing solutions from above, or stifling initiative, they create an environment where creativity, autonomy, and collaboration can flourish naturally among their team. They delegate with confidence, actively listening to the perspectives and solutions of others. They know when to intervene to guide and when to allow problems to resolve organically within the team, trusting in their capabilities. They understand that sometimes the best action is to step back, allow the team to find its own way, or even let a problem breathe for a while so that an innovative solution emerges spontaneously. It is the art of knowing when to gently push and when to release control, when to speak to guide, and when to listen deeply to understand the true flow of the situation. In interpersonal relationships, trying to control others, impose our expectations on them, or force a connection that isn't natural is a sure recipe for resentment and disconnection. Wu Wei in relationships implies an authentic and liberating presence. It means actively listening without judgment, offering unconditional support without stifling, allowing others to truly be who they are, and trusting in the natural growth of bonds. It is the art of loving without possessing, guiding your children without dominating their spirit, being present without invading their personal space. It means recognizing that each person has their own rhythm, their own needs, and their own path, and that true connection and love flourish in freedom, mutual respect, and unconditional acceptance. In decision-making, we often feel overwhelmed by the pressure to make quick decisions, even when we lack complete clarity or when information is insufficient. We push ourselves toward hasty action. Wu Wei suggests that sometimes the best action is momentary non-action. This means waiting, patiently observing how the situation unfolds a bit more, allowing new information to reveal itself, or simply letting our own intuition and understanding mature. It's like water waiting for the precise moment to overflow a dam when its level is just right, or the wind waiting for the correct direction before effectively pushing a sail. The truly wise and effective decision often arises from a calm and receptive mind, not from an agitated mind forced by urgency or anxiety. Trust your intuition. Sometimes, the clearest answer reveals itself precisely when you stop frantically searching for it. In learning and creativity, when we try to force memorization of information under intense pressure and with anxiety about performance, we often become frustrated, and the superficial knowledge we acquire doesn't truly settle. But when we immerse ourselves in a topic with genuine curiosity, allowing knowledge to settle and integrate naturally through exploration and experimentation, learning becomes fluid, effortless, and much deeper. Wu Wei encourages us to create a stimulating learning environment and trust our innate ability to absorb and comprehend. In the realm of creativity, it means not forcing inspiration, but creating a mental and emotional space for it to emerge, allowing ideas to flow freely, without excessive judgment, without self-demand or paralyzing self-criticism. It is the state of flow or zone experienced by artists, musicians, writers, and thinkers when they are completely immersed in their work, where action and creation seem to happen without conscious effort, as if they were channeled by something greater. Cultivating Wu Wei, a path of constant refinement. Wu Wei is not a mystical state reached once and for all, nor a skill mastered completely in a single attempt. Rather, it is a constant practice, a path of continuous refinement that gradually integrates into our daily lives. It requires a series of internal qualities and a fundamental shift in our perspective on how we interact with the world. Deep observation and mindfulness. To practice Wu Wei, we must be truly present in the here and now. This means observing external circumstances without immediate judgment, perceiving subtle environmental cues, listening to the implicit needs of others, and, crucially, tuning into our own intuitions and internal sensations. It's listening more than we speak, seeing more than we act, allowing reality to reveal itself as it is before reacting. This mindfulness allows us to feel the flow of the situation and respond in an informed and aligned manner. Trust in the process of life. We must develop a deep faith in the inherent order of life, in the intrinsic wisdom of nature, and in our own innate ability to adapt and respond appropriately. This does not mean naive passivity or paralyzing fatalism, but a serene conviction that there is a path unfolding before us, and that if we align with it, we will be guided naturally. It is letting go of the obsessive need to control every outcome, and trusting that, by creating the right conditions and acting with wisdom, what is meant to be will be, often in a more perfect way than we could have orchestrated. Detachment from the specific outcome. While it is natural to have clear intentions, goals, and objectives in life, Wu Wei invites us not to cling rigidly to a specific predetermined result. By letting go of the need for absolute control over the outcome, we free ourselves from overwhelming anxiety, frustration at not achieving perfection, and paralyzing fear of failure. Paradoxically, by detaching from a fixed outcome, we often allow life to surprise us with unexpected solutions, with alternative paths, and with outcomes that are, ultimately, superior to what we had imagined. It's like planting a seed. You do your part diligently, you nurture it, but then you release control over how and when exactly it will sprout and grow. Mental and emotional flexibility. The ability to change course with agility when circumstances demand it, to adjust our expectations to new realities, and not to be swept away by intense and reactive emotions that cloud our judgment. It is the fluidity we discussed extensively in Chapter 1, now applied to our psyche and our emotional life. It is the ability to let go of old beliefs and thought patterns that no longer serve us, and to embrace new perspectives with an open mind and a willing heart. Resistance to mental change is as detrimental as resistance to physical change. When we practice Wu Wei consciously and consistently, our actions become more efficient, more powerful, and surprisingly require less effort. It's like a boat sailing with the wind, gliding smoothly toward its destination, instead of frantically rowing against the current, exhausting its crew without advancing. The vital energy that was previously spent on resistance, excessive control, and constant frustration is now liberated for genuine creativity, for authentic connection with others, and for cultivating a deep and lasting sense of peace and joy. We move with life, we dance with it, instead of pushing it with stubbornness. This art of effortless action prepares us to understand another fundamental paradox of the Tao, one that invites us to find value and power in what at first glance appears to be the absence of something, nothingness. In our next segment, we will explore the concept of emptiness and how space, silence, and non-presence are as essential and powerful as presence and action. Chapter 3: The Power of Emptiness and Silence. In this segment, we delve into another of the Tao's most intriguing and profound paradoxes, the concept of emptiness. At first glance, the word emptiness might evoke a sense of absence, of lack, of something that isn't there. But Lao Tzu reveals to us that emptiness is not a deficiency, but an essential condition for existence, functionality, and fullness. It is the nothingness that allows everything to be and to have meaning. Imagine a simple everyday object, one so common that we rarely reflect on its true essence. A cup. What is the true value of the cup? Does it lie in the ceramic, the glass, or the metal it's made from, in its shape, its color, its design? Partially, yes. But its fundamental function, what makes it useful and distinguishes it from a solid ornament, is not its solid material, but the empty space it contains within. It's that emptiness that allows it to hold tea, coffee, water, or any liquid we wish to drink. If the cup were completely solid, without that hollow space, it would be useless for its primary purpose, a mere block of material. Extend this idea to other examples that surround us and we use daily. A room. It's not the walls, the ceiling, or the floor that make it useful and habitable, but the empty space they enclose. That space allows us to breathe, to move freely, to place furniture, and ultimately, to inhabit it. Without that emptiness, it would just be a structure of brick and concrete, uninhabitable. A window. Its essential purpose is not the glass or the frame that frames it, but the transparent space that allows sunlight to enter our homes and us to see the outside world, connecting us with the landscape. A wheel. Its strength and resistance lie in the spokes and the rim, yes, but it is the emptiness between the spokes and the central space for the axle that allows it to rotate without friction and therefore move a vehicle. Without that space, it would be an immovable disc. A flute or any wind instrument. The beautiful sound and melody that move us do not come from the solid material of the flute itself. Rather, they arise from the empty space within and the strategically placed holes that allow the air to resonate and create the vibrations we perceive as musical notes. In each of these cases, functionality, utility, and intrinsic value do not reside solely in the presence of solid matter. In fact, they often reside in the presence of emptiness, of space, of the calculated absence that allows action, containment, perception, or creation. Nothingness is, in essence, what gives meaning, purpose, and utility to something. Emptiness in our lives, space to breathe, create, and be. If emptiness is so fundamental and functional in the physical world and in the objects we create, what profound implications does this concept have in our lives, in our minds, in our emotions, and in our relationships with others? The power of silence and mental stillness. We live in an incessantly noisy world, where information and sensory and digital stimuli are constant and overwhelming. We fill every minute of our day with sound, with bright screens, with conversations, with notifications, and with multitasking. But when was the last time you allowed yourself true silence? I'm not just referring to the absence of external noise, but also to the silence of the mind, to that pause in the constant inner chatter. It is in that silence and mental stillness that the mind can truly clear, where creativity can emerge spontaneously, where solutions to complex problems can reveal themselves with astonishing clarity, and where intuition can speak without interruption. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of possibility, the fertile space to listen to our deepest inner voice, to process our experiences without distortions, and to connect with a wisdom that transcends logic. Just as an already full cup cannot receive more liquid, a mind constantly full of noise and distractions cannot receive new ideas, inspirations, or intuitions. We need emptiness for receptivity. The usefulness of space in the schedule and personal time. Our modern society relentlessly pushes us to fill every minute of our day with activities, meetings, tasks, social commitments, and obligations. We schedule our lives to the point of suffocation, believing that being busy is synonymous with being productive or important. However, the Tao reminds us of the vital importance of empty spaces in our schedule, of those moments of apparent inactivity. These instants of stillness, an aimless walk through the park, thoughtfully gazing out the window without doing anything else, simply being without an immediate purpose, are not idle wastes of time. They are the functional equivalent of spaces in a room. They are the essential moments that allow our ideas to settle and mature, our energy to recharge, our nervous system to rest, and inspiration or clarity to find us, instead of us having to tirelessly chase it. Real and sustainable productivity is not only measured by the number of hours worked or tasks completed, but by the quality of the moments in which we allow our mind and body to rest, regenerate, and reconnect. Without these spaces of emptiness, we become exhausted, our creativity diminishes, and our discernment capacity is clouded. Emptiness in interpersonal relationships. In our interactions with others, we often try to fill every moment with conversation, with our own unsolicited advice, with our expectations, or with our judgment. However, space, the emptiness in a relationship, is vital for its health and growth. This means giving freedom to the other, respecting their individuality and personal space, allowing them to grow and evolve at their own pace without the need to control them, project our own needs onto them, or try to fill them with our ideas. It also means the ability to listen deeply and with full presence, leaving space for the other to express themselves completely, without interruptions, without the urge to provide an immediate solution or without the burden of judgment. It is in that space of unconditional acceptance, respect for the other's autonomy, and freedom that true, meaningful, and lasting connections can flourish and deepen. Emptiness in creation and innovation. For an artist, a writer, a musician, a scientist, or any innovator, emptiness is not a fearful threat, but a blank canvas of unlimited potential. Before a sculpture takes shape, there is an inert block of stone or wood. Before a symphony resonates, there is silence. It is in that apparent nothingness that the infinite possibility of creating something new, original, and truly meaningful resides. Often in our eagerness to produce and our fear of blocks, we resist that moment of creative emptiness, feeling the pressure to constantly generate ideas. But by embracing it, by allowing ourselves that fertile stillness, by trusting that ideas will emerge, we open the door wide to genuine inspiration and revolutionary innovation. It is an act of faith in the inherent potential of emptiness. Cultivating inner emptiness, an act of fullness. Integrating the power of emptiness into our lives is not an esoteric exercise. It is a practical and transformative path toward greater inner peace, deeper effectiveness, and a fuller life. This involves a series of practices and habit changes. Practice intentional daily. Silence. Dedicate a few minutes each day to simply be in silence, without a specific purpose. Turn off screens, silence external noise, and allow your mind to calm. Don't try to do anything with that silence, just experience it. If thoughts arise, observe them without judgment and let them pass, returning your attention to stillness. This is a mental training exercise. Create empty spaces in your schedule. Consciously and deliberately, block out moments in your day or week to do nothing specific. Allow yourself to wander aimlessly, sit in a park to observe, daydream, or simply sit in stillness in your home. These are not lost moments. They are incubation moments for your well-being, your creativity, and your mental clarity. The flexibility of having space allows life to surprise you. Listen without filling the space. In your conversations with friends, family, or colleagues, practice listening to the other person without the immediate need to respond, advise, or judge. Allow silence to be a natural part of the interaction, giving the other person space to express themselves completely, to find their own words, and to feel truly heard. Embrace the unknown and uncertainty. Life often presents us with information gaps or uncertain situations, which can naturally generate anxiety. Instead of panicking about filling those gaps with conjectures, fears, or rigid plans, cultivate patience and trust. The unknown space also contains unlimited potential, yet to be revealed possibilities, and unexpected revelations. By embracing uncertainty, you become more resilient and receptive to new solutions. When we embrace emptiness, we don't become empty ourselves. On the contrary, we become more whole, more receptive, and more connected with the essence of life. We discover that life is not just about accumulating, doing, and possessing, but also about letting go, allowing, and finding profound richness in apparent nothingness. Space and silence become powerful allies on our journey through the Tao, allowing us to listen more deeply to our inner wisdom, see the reality of things with greater clarity, and act with a wisdom born from stillness and understanding. This understanding of emptiness prepares us to comprehend how the Tao invites us to see the interconnection of all things, even those that seem opposite or contradictory. It teaches us to navigate the complexity of existence with a perspective that transcends superficial judgment. In our next chapter, we will explore the wisdom of perspective and simplicity, discovering how life is immeasurably enriched when we embrace its dualities and consciously shed the superfluous. Chapter 4. The Wisdom of Perspective and Simplicity. In this segment, the Tao invites us to look at the world with a new lens, one that allows us to see the interconnection of all things and the profound value in simplicity. This chapter will guide us through two fundamental principles for a more harmonious life: the relativity of opposites and the liberating beauty of shedding the superfluous. The dance of opposites, yin and yang. Life is a constant tapestry of contrasts: light and darkness, day and night, strength and weakness, success and failure, joy and sorrow, abundance and scarcity. Our mind, in its eagerness to organize and control, tends to label one of these poles as good and the other as bad, desperately seeking to cling to the former and avoid the latter at all costs. However, the Tao teaches us that these apparent opposites are not separate entities fighting each other in an eternal battle, but interdependent, complementary, and mutually defining aspects of a single, indivisible reality. This is the deep essence of the ancient symbol of yin and yang. Two seemingly contrary forces that contain each other, define each other, and flow in a dynamic balance, creating the totality of the universe. Within each yin, there is a point of yang, and within each yang, a point of yin, reminding us that even in the maximum expression of one opposite, its contrary is already present. Think of light. Could we even conceive of its existence, appreciate it, or define it without the fundamental existence of darkness? Height has no meaning without the notion of depth or low. Joy is felt with vibrant intensity precisely because we have known and experienced sadness. Within the framework of the Tao, apparent weakness can, over time and with strategy, lead to immeasurable strength, like soft water that, with persistence, wears down the hardest stone, and what we perceive today as a painful loss can open an unexpected space for new gains, new opportunities, or unimaginable personal growth. When we actively resist one part of this inherent duality of life, we are, in essence, resisting life itself in its totality and complexity. If we only seek joy and avoid any hint of sadness, we deny ourselves the invaluable wisdom, empathy, and depth that only difficult experiences can bring. If we only value linear, faultless success, we miss the profound learning, resilience, and humility that arise from facing and overcoming failure. The Tao invites us to accept the totality of the human experience, to recognize that each aspect contains the seed of its opposite, and that both are necessary, not only for dynamic balance, but also for our own evolution and the completeness of our understanding. This profound wisdom of opposites frees us from constant judgment and mental rigidity. It helps us see that a situation that today seems like an insurmountable disadvantage or bad luck, tomorrow, with a shift in perspective or the passage of time, could be the fundamental cause of a great unexpected advantage or a unique opportunity. It teaches us not to cling too rigidly to a single perspective, but to understand that reality is fluid, multifaceted, and ever-changing. Perspective is everything. If you manage to fundamentally change the way you see things, the things you see will inevitably change. It is a power that resides in the mind and choice. Accepting duality means ultimately embracing the paradox that true fullness and greater wisdom are often found in humility. True strength resides in softness and adaptability, and true gain manifests in detachment from predetermined outcomes. By ceasing to stubbornly fight against one of the poles of existence, we allow life to flow more freely, without the draining friction of constant judgment and internal resistance that exhausts us. The elegance of simplicity. In a world that incessantly bombards us with messages of more is better, of constant accumulation and increasing complexity, the Tao offers a refreshing and profoundly liberating counterpoint. The profound beauty, intrinsic effectiveness, and power of simplicity. Unnecessary complexity often brings confusion, chronic stress, anxiety, and mental exhaustion. Simplicity, on the other hand, frees up a vast amount of energy, clears the mind of distractions, and connects us directly and powerfully with the truly essential things in life. Lao Tzu, with his characteristic conciseness, tells us, "The Tao is great, heaven is great, earth is great, the king is also great. In the universe there are 4 great things, and one of them is the king." The idea here is not to establish a hierarchy, but to point out the immensity, the greatness, and the potency that is revealed in the fundamental, in the essential, in what is pure and unadorned. Simplicity, in this context, is not synonymous with scarcity or a life devoid of experiences. It is instead the profound clarity of what is truly important and meaningful in your existence. Consider an ancient forest in its natural and unaltered state. In its essential functioning, it is an ecosystem of astonishing simplicity, although inherently complex in its ecological interconnections. There are no unnecessary embellishments, no superfluous elements, just life in its purest, most functional and sustainable form. Let's contrast this with the excessive accumulation in our own lives. We fill our homes with objects we rarely use, which require maintenance and take up our space and energy. We fill our minds with irrelevant information, with unnecessary worries, and with the constant noise of social media. And we fill our schedules with commitments that, though well-intentioned, overwhelm us and distract us from our deepest purposes. Each of these additions, however small, requires mental and physical energy to be maintained, organized, processed, or simply to occupy a space in our lives. Simplicity, in the context of the Tao, is a conscious, deliberate, and liberating act of stripping away the superfluous. It is a process of distillation, of returning to the essence. This applies to all spheres of our life. Material objects. Embracing minimalism is not a deprivation, but a liberation. Fewer possessions mean fewer worries about what you have, less time spent on maintenance and cleaning, and more freedom to dedicate our energy to experiences and relationships. Information and stimuli. In the digital age, we are constantly bombarded by an avalanche of data, news, opinions, and entertainment. Simplicity involves consciously discerning what information is truly useful, meaningful, or nourishing for our growth, and what is just noise that consumes our attention and energy without providing real value. It is learning to filter and protect our mind. Commitments and obligations. We often feel obliged to say yes to every invitation or request for fear of disappointing or missing out. Simplicity involves learning to say no kindly and firmly to what doesn't resonate with our essential values, doesn't contribute to our goals, or distracts us from our deepest purposes. This frees up time and energy for what truly matters. Thoughts and mental worries. Simplifying our mind means freeing ourselves from excessive rumination about the past, unnecessary worries about the future, and attachment to rigid ideas or limiting narratives. It is practicing mindfulness to observe thoughts without identifying with them, allowing the mind to find a state of greater clarity and stillness. When we simplify, we create space. We return to the concept of emptiness that we explored in the previous chapter, but this time, it is an intentional emptiness, a sacred space created by removing what distracts us, weighs us down, or overwhelms us. This space allows us to concentrate fully on what truly matters, whether it's a meaningful relationship, a passionate project, connection with nature, or simply the conscious enjoyment of the present moment. We become intrinsically more efficient because our energy is not dispersed in 1,000 irrelevant directions. The mind calms, the body relaxes, and the spirit finds a more serene and authentic home. The intrinsic beauty of simplicity does not lie in forced austerity or in the denial of comforts, but in the elegance of the essential, in the clarity that arises when we eliminate the superfluous. It is a direct path to a fuller, more conscious, and more authentic life, where every object, every relationship, and every moment has a purpose and is deeply valued. By stripping away the unnecessary, we discover the immense richness we already possess within ourselves and in our immediate surroundings, and the profound freedom that comes from the lightness of living without self-imposed burdens. Both principles, the acceptance of the inherent duality of existence and the conscious pursuit of simplicity in all its forms, are powerful paths toward greater harmony and lasting peace. They teach us to see life with clearer eyes, to dance with its contrasts without resistance, and to find fullness in the essence of each moment. In our next and final chapter, we will tie all these threads of wisdom together and explore how to integrate the principles of the Tao practically and fluidly into every aspect of our daily lives, transforming our existence into a conscious reflection of this eternal and flowing path. Chapter 5. Integrating the Tao into your daily life. This chapter is dedicated to the practical integration of the Tao, to how you can begin to live these principles, not as distant ideals, but as everyday tools for peace and fulfillment. Cultivate mindfulness, the observer of the flow. The first and perhaps most fundamental step to integrating the Tao into your life is to develop greater mindfulness. If you truly want to flow with the river of life, you must first be able to see and feel the river as it is, without distortions. This means being present, truly present, in every moment that is presented to you. Observe without judging. Life unfolds moment by moment with its highs and lows, its joys and its challenges. Often our mind is busy labeling, judging, resisting, or clinging to what is happening. The Tao invites us to observe external events, our own internal emotions, and our fluctuating thoughts without rigidly clinging to them or condemning them. Just as water does not judge the rock it flows around, you can observe a difficult situation or an intense emotion without adding the burden of moral judgment or resistance. Just observe what is, with an open curiosity and a calm mind. This detached and non-judgmental observation creates an inner space of freedom, an emptiness that allows deeper wisdom and creative solutions to emerge on their own. Tune into your intuition. The Tao is a path of feeling more than forcing, of listening to internal wisdom rather than imposing external logic. Our intuition, that gut feeling or instant knowledge that arises from within, is a powerful compass that connects us with the natural flow of the universe. When we are conscious, present, and calm, we can listen to that subtle inner voice that guides us precisely toward the right action, wu wei, or toward the necessary pause before acting. Trust that guidance. Daily mindfulness practice. Integrate small moments of mindfulness into your daily life. It can be as simple as dedicating 3 minutes to full attention on your breath in the midst of a busy task, observing the sounds around you without identifying or analyzing them, or walking while paying attention to every sensation in your feet and the movement of your body. These small pauses firmly anchor you in the present, reduce stress, and allow you to see the flow of life with greater clarity and a renewed perspective. Accept what is. The rock moves with the water. One of the greatest obstacles to inner peace and fluidity in life is our constant resistance to reality as it presents itself. We want things to be different from what they are. We long for people to act differently. We wish the past had not happened or that the future would be a specific, controllable way. This internal resistance is like trying to push the river upstream, a useless and exhausting struggle. Surrender, not resignation. Accepting what is does not mean passively resigning yourself to fate or abandoning your dreams. It is rather an act of profound wisdom. It is recognizing the reality of the present moment without adding unnecessary drama, moral judgment, or internal struggle. It's like water that accepts the shape of the container that holds it, not fighting against its limits but adapting to them. Once you accept the current starting point, however difficult it may be, you can act from a place of greater clarity, effectiveness, and peace. If it starts to rain, you don't fight the rain. You take out an umbrella or seek shelter. If a carefully laid plan drastically changes, you accept the change and look for the new path that opens before you instead of lamenting the one that closed. The wisdom of imperfection. Life, in its essence, is imperfect, messy, unpredictable, and constantly changing. The Tao teaches us to find beauty, strength, and wisdom in that imperfection. A tree that has been shaped by the wind and weather can be stronger and have deeper roots than one that grew in a protected environment. A failed experience or a mistake can be invaluable teachers that give us lessons that easy success would never provide. Embrace the totality of the human experience, including what you don't like or what causes you discomfort, and you will see how that radical acceptance frees you from an immense burden. Cultivate inner serenity, the still center in the storm. Despite the constant and sometimes turbulent flow of life, the Tao invites us to find a center of immutable calm within ourselves, like the eye of a hurricane that remains serene and calm while the storm rages furiously around it. This serenity is not an absence of emotions, but the ability to observe them without being swept away by them. Inner emptiness. This center of serenity is nourished by the emptiness we have explored. It is the sacred space you create within yourself by letting go of attachment to external noise, constant distractions, and incessant worries. It is the silence in your mind that allows you to observe your thoughts and emotions without reacting impulsively, creating a healthy distance between you and them. Calming practices. Many ways exist to cultivate this inner calm. Conscious breathing is your most accessible anchor to the present. When you feel overwhelmed, take a minute to focus only on your inhalation and exhalation. This calms the nervous system and brings you back to your center. Conscious walks in nature allow you to reconnect with the Tao in its purest manifestation. A walk through a park, a forest, or near water can restore your inner balance. Digital disconnection is vital. Create moments of intentional unplugging. Turn off your phone, close social media. Allow your mind to rest from the constant bombardment of information. In this digital void, great stillness and clarity are often found. Right action. Wu Wei in the present moment. Once you have cultivated awareness, acceptance, and inner serenity, your actions naturally become more aligned with Wu Wei. You no longer force results with excessive effort, but act from an understanding of the flow and natural rhythm. Identify the propitious moment. By observing and accepting reality as it is, and by being in your serene center, you begin to recognize the precise and appropriate moment to act, and when it is better to wait and let things mature. There is no need to rush or to force premature action. Action that arises from discernment and alignment with the flow is intrinsically more powerful and effective than impulsive or forced action. Less is more. Simplicity in action. Instead of trying to do 1,000 things at once, scattering your energy and attention, focus on a single task with all your presence and mindfulness. Simple action, when performed with full attention, without internal resistance, and with a Wu Wei attitude, is incredibly effective and produces deeper results. Eliminate unnecessary distractions, simplify your processes, and you will see your effectiveness multiply. Trust the process, release the outcome. Do your part with dedication, diligence, and the best intention, but then release rigid and obsessive attachment to the final result. Remember the gardener who plants the seed and cares for it, but trusts that nature will do the rest of its work. This trust drastically reduces anxiety, stress, and frustration, and allows life itself to contribute with unexpected solutions and often better than you had planned. Flow with the process, don't cling to the destination. Extend harmony, compassion, and connection. The Tao is not just an individual path of personal growth. It is fundamentally a path of interconnection with everything around you. By integrating its principles within yourself, the harmony you cultivate internally will naturally radiate outward to others and to the world. Compassion for others. Accepting duality allows you to see that everyone, including yourself, is a mix of light and shadow, strengths and weaknesses. This fosters deep compassion and non-judgment toward others. When you understand that each person is flowing on their own path and facing their own rocks, empathy and kindness arise naturally. Harmony with nature. The Tao is intrinsically ecological and respectful of the environment. By recognizing the natural flow of the universe and the interconnection of all life forms, you will feel more connected to the earth, animals, and life cycles. This will naturally drive you to live in a more sustainable, conscious, and environmentally respectful way. Effortless service. When you act from Wu Wei, your contributions to the world, whether in your work, your community, or your home, feel less like a burden or an obligation, and more like a natural expression of your harmonious being and your purpose. Service becomes a fluid extension of your own inner harmony, a giving that does not exhaust, but fills you. Practices for daily life, small steps on the great path. To help you integrate these principles and make them an active part of your life, here are some concrete and simple practices you can adopt starting today. The daily water exercise. Every time you drink a glass of water, take a conscious moment to feel it. Think about its fluidity, its ability to adapt to any container, its silent and persistent power. Visualize yourself absorbing those same qualities into your own being. The traffic light or line. Pause. When you stop at a red light in a supermarket line or waiting anywhere, instead of automatically pulling out your phone, use that empty time to breathe deeply, observe your surroundings without judgment, and simply be present in the moment. Allow the stillness to recharge you. Simplify one thing a week. Choose an area of your life that feels overwhelming, a messy drawer, your email inbox, a social commitment that burdens you. Dedicate some time to simplify it. Get rid of the unnecessary, organize the essential. Observe the feeling of lightness that arises. Accept a no or a change. The next time something doesn't go as you expected, or someone tells you no, or a plan is cancelled, practice acceptance instead of resistance. Observe the situation without attachment, accept it, and then look for the alternative flow that presents itself. What new door opens? A conscious act of Wu Wei. Identify a task in your day that you usually do with effort, tension, or that generates resistance. Try to do it with an attitude of effortlessness, trusting the process and allowing the action to arise fluidly. This could be washing dishes, walking, or writing an email. Feel the difference. The Tao is not a religious doctrine, nor a set of rigid rules. It is an open invitation to live in greater harmony with nature, with yourself, and with all beings around you. By integrating these principles into your life, you will discover that life is not a battle to be won at all costs, but a continuous dance in which you can participate with grace, wisdom, and a profound serenity. Practice is the path, and the path reveals itself in practice. Conclusion. The path continues. We have reached the end of this journey through the path of knowledge, a profound exploration of the ancient wisdom of the Tao. Together we have navigated the unyielding fluidity of water, discovering how adaptability and gentle persistence are unsuspected sources of power. We have delved into the art of Wu Wei, effortless action, learning to work in harmony with the flow of life, like the wise gardener who nurtures instead of forcing. We have understood the profound value of emptiness, realizing that space and silence are as essential as presence and sound, allowing for creativity and clarity. And we have embraced the wisdom of perspective and simplicity, recognizing the interconnection of opposites and the liberation that comes from shedding the superfluous. Finally, we have seen how these principles can be integrated into every aspect of our daily lives, transforming our experience from within. This is not the end of our path, but a new beginning. The Tao is not a doctrine to memorize, but a path to walk, a constant flow that reveals itself with every step. True mastery lies not in reaching a fixed destination, but in the continuous practice of awareness, acceptance, serenity, and aligned action. It is a journey of self-discovery and harmonization with the universe that surrounds you. I invite you to carry these teachings with you, to experience them in your own life, to apply them in your decisions, in your relationships, and in your growth. Let the wisdom of water guide you in moments of change. Let the spirit of Wu Wei inspire you to act with grace and effectiveness. Let the power of emptiness bring you peace in noise and clarity in confusion. And let the beauty of simplicity free you from unnecessary burdens. Remember, knowledge is just a seed. Its most precious fruit truly blossoms in constant application and lived experience. If this video has resonated with you and you have found value in the teachings of the Path of Knowledge, we invite you to be part of our community. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future explorations of wisdom and new perspectives that will help you on your own path. If this video has provided you with something significant, please give it a like to support us and share it with those you believe could benefit. Your support is invaluable and helps us continue sharing these videos of wisdom, reflection, and growth.